Welcome to It's Interesting You Say That, a Bounce Back Generation podcast.
I've had a string of calls with people who are stressed about the state of the world. It's like thing after thing after thing after thing just keep happening.
I think gets to people. It's like what is it all? What is the point of going through all this? And that's a whole metaphysical, larger philosophical question. But which maybe we want to talk about her.
Welcome to It's Interesting You Say That. Each week, we dive into personal strength, mental resilience, and emotional balance. I'm Jennifer Dillon, a nonprofit leader and resilience expert, and Tyler is a professional coach. We come from different backgrounds and different generations. I'm a bleeding heart liberal. He voted for Trump. But each week, we have a deep, meaningful conversation about the world today. We're glad you're here.
I've asked people, like, what's bothering you? Or they'll say, like, I'm bothered about the news. I was like, well, what was the headline? Like, what happened? Usually that will kind of spark something where they start talking for 10, 15, 20 minutes about just what they're thinking about it. And they'll kind of go into, like, kind of like you said, like that conversation starts to kind of become more of a philosophy conversation. And then they've had the chance to express their frustrations. And so I think after people get that chance and we just talk about the news or we just talk about what's bothering you. And even though it seems really trivial, a lot of people find it kind of silly at first. Like, I don't want to talk about it. It just kind of is what it is. This thing happened. It's horrible. Let's just move on. But if you actually say, okay, well, what happened? Why does it bother you? And like, what else is bothering you? What else is bothering you about the news? What else do you see? And then you almost gain sort of like this emotional momentum where instead of trying to push it to the side or being stricken by guilt and not wanting to dive into it or feeling paralyzed. And I think maybe some of us have become desensitized and we see the headlines and we stop thinking. It's like we see the headline and we get scared, or we see the headline and we feel victimized or we feel helpless, instead of like taking it the step further and asking ourselves, well, what does this mean? What does this really make me feel? It seems, I don't know about for everyone, but for me, some of the people that I talk to, it seems to kind of like regulate the nervous system a little bit. Instead of it just being like this huge, like mystery box, Pandora's box full of stuff that we don't know what to do with, we kind of slowly open it up and unravel it. And then it's like, okay, it's okay. And I can see it. And it's not like some huge weight hanging over me. And there might be something that I can do, even if it's just something small.
What I tell people, what I tell myself when I read a headline or I see something on TV that's really bad news, and especially now, because what's happening is this like overflow of terrible news coming at us. And we've always had that, like as modern people, we have the capacity to receive a million messages coming at us that are bad messages, good messages, whatever. And now the headlines are about clickbait, about like, can I make you click? So they're intended to inspire, reaction, an emotional reaction. But what is an emotional reaction? It is your nervous system reacting to something like in a fight, flight, freeze, faint, fawn response or other responses. And so when people say, I feel overwhelmed by the news and I don't know what to do, you have been triggered, but you are also not given the opportunity to let all of that nervous system response come back out, right? And I think what you were saying was that when you talk to people and you can kind of delve deeper into, okay, what did you feel? How did it make you feel? How do you connect that with an action you can take in your own world that will do something? So if I hear that a child is suffering because, their whole family was bombed or something, what can I do? I find, and here's like where the rubber meets the road. So you can take that nervous system response and be mean to somebody, because you need to get it out. So here's how my steps go. When I saw or read or experienced that thing, did I go into my fight response? Did I go into my flight? Do I want to run away from this issue? Did I go into my freeze up? I don't know what to do. Did I go into faint where I just said, there's nothing I can do. I'm just going to go lie down and not listen to anything, or I'm just going to turn off to everything? Or did I fawn, which is, did I try to people please somebody so that I could change my circumstance so I don't feel so victimized by what's going on? And then I take that response, which I always say my first response is fight. It's anger. Then I have to say, now I got to take this anger and make sure I don't take it out on somebody else. But it's very that, and I think this is what happens so much is people take that anger and then they turn it on their neighbor. They turn it on the person at the grocery store who is going too slow or cutting in line or whatever. And then that's what you see a lot of is, people blowing up and stuff. And so I think, but I have to say that, this is a theme that I keep coming back to is how much we are being manipulated right now. Our nervous system is being played in media particularly, but also in politics. People have learned the stuff that we're talking about. There are people who have learned how to use that. We are going to trigger you. If you go to go to YouTube, for example, and type in, how to do blankety blank. And you're going to find that most of the ones that are popular are things that trigger you. So, how do I fix my dishwasher? I had to look that up the other day. And it's not going to be, here's how you fix your Frigidaire dishwasher. It's going to be, do this now so that you don't mess up your dishwasher, right? Or things that you wish you knew before you did this. Or other people know how to do this and you don't, so you better watch this. All that's the messages you'll get, right? So I'm immediately triggered that there's something wrong with me, or I don't know what's going on, because what it's trying to do, all those YouTube thumbnails are trying to make you feel like if I don't click on this now, I'm going to be a victim of something, I'm going to be taken advantage of, or I'm not going to know, or everybody's going to have the best time of their life and I'm not going to be part of it. No wonder we're all nervous system wrecks.
One of the first things when I was trying to build my business, one of the first things that I learned, or one of the most prevalent things that there was for me to learn, was that all sales, all marketing, everything is based on emotion. Like, people don't buy because you say this is a good product and you need it. People buy because of the YouTube thumbnails. Like, you'll basically, I guess, like survival. Like, if you don't get this thing, you're not going to survive. Or if you don't get this thing, like, your life is going to suck. And I went with that at first, but something just kind of irked me. It's not right. And I'm reading this book called The User Illusion, and it was saying when they first figured out like subliminal, they were trying to figure out like how consciousness can perceive very short messages. So like how long does something have, how long do you have to be exposed to something to be conscious of it? And that's kind of where the idea of subliminal messages came from. And then when scientists figured out like you could just show like a small blip of something and you might not consciously recognize it, but your subconscious recognizes it and it primes you for certain things, marketers went crazy. And I think a law went into effect saying that you can't do that. And I think we're kind of in the same place, but instead of like these subliminal messages, we're using fear to market, because it's a good tool, but it's not healthy.
No, it's not.
And it's wrong, but it's what sells. And when I was first where I was going is, when I first started the business, I wasn't doing coaching. I was just doing advertising. I was doing sponsorships. I was doing ads. And the more ads or the more views you get, the more ad money you make. And the biggest monetization model for TV and YouTube, typically, it's ads. And so if you're trying to get more views, you're going to use the easiest thing to get more views and just sell to people's emotions. Only you're not really selling them anything. You're just selling the video. And the easiest way, make them scared, make them fearful. Say, if you don't get this or you don't watch this, you're screwed.
Well, the research has shown that there are two things that get people to click. The fear you're going to miss out, fear of, somebody else is going to get it before you do, that kind of thing, which is and even this kind of, like you said, subliminally sending the message that you want to watch this because even if it's just the simple fear, like everyone else will know about it and you won't, and that will somehow be detrimental to you, or you'll be left out, you're not cool, you're not whatever. And then there's the other thing that gets people to click, and that's being inspired and feeling good. And so there's like on one side it's kittens and puppies, and the other side it's danger, danger, you better do something now. And why can't we use more of the kittens and puppies approach? And I guess it is being used a lot, but what I think then that does is it's like you do have to tell people about the fact that in the Congo there's this horrible war going on that a lot of people don't know about, and the terrible suffering that's happening. But on the other hand, we are all suffering from this, I guess, like an empathy exhaustion, because we can't do anything. I'm going to experiment with this, but that can we tell people, be aware of this thing, and then also give them a solution? And I think that's what we try to do with these podcasts, because I don't think we've ever done a podcast where we haven't talked about a subject and then ended it with like, do this, do this, do this, do this. And it makes a lot of sense to me, but I don't hear a lot of people saying this. We as people should be demanding that, like, our corporations should be moral. Let's just put it this way. Our corporations, the thing I want from my corporation that gives me stuff, whether it's the news or a product that I use or a service, is that you should not hurt other people. You should not hurt me, and you should not hurt other people, and you should not hurt the planet. Why is that not a standard that we have for what we do? And that's going to sound really naive, but I think it should be like a baseline. If you can't operate in a way that is not harmful to human beings and the planet, then there's something wrong with your business and you need to modify that. And yes, that might mean you make less money, but that should be just a basic standard. So the same thing should be like, if we're getting information, the information should also be like, I need to give you information, but I need to do it in a way that is going to be not harmful to you and not harmful to other people. And that includes giving you information about what you can do about this thing. So if I'm going to give you a story about the Congo, I want you to also say, well, if I feel really bad about what's happening there, what can I do? At the end of the story, okay, here's some things you can do to help. And some places do that, but they feel like it's advocacy. Well, that means that, we're feeling sorry for the children that are, or the women that are, being attacked. Well, yeah, you should. That should be basic, that if people in this world are hurting, your responsibility is to help to not make them hurt.
I think a lot of that is a market. I think, okay, well, let me not start with the problem. Let me start with maybe the solution, or at least what I think that the solution is. We have to change our behavior, because the free market, if it's not regulated, will just do whatever makes the most money typically.
Right.
But that also means there's a group of people that make the news companies profitable or make bad companies profitable. And I think in I don't know, medical companies, that might be different, because sometimes if your life depends on getting a certain medicine and you have to pay an outrageous price to get it, there's not a whole bunch you can do. And so that might be a bigger scale issue. But like with the news, you don't have to watch news from that source. And I think and we're starting to see that now with, I know it happens on YouTube too, but there's a lot of people that create content around news where you can get your news in more of an unbiased fashion or more of an objective fashion. And I think if people tend to change their preferences about what they really want and then take the extra step in finding where they can get those sources, then platforms like the news will start to decline, and which they already are. Because I think people are starting to realize, well, I don't really just want negative, 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 negative.
Right.
And so I think we're in a horrible time because it's very unnatural. I think to us to be aware of like what's happening, for us to be aware of what's happening in the Congo,
Mm-hmm.
or what's happening in 100 different places 100 different times a day. That stream of information is very unnatural, and I think you're right. Like emotional empathy, exhaustion, because we're not wired to be able to perceive that much information, especially that much horrible information.
Yeah.
But that it's also a good thing because the same mechanism that makes that so negative is the same mechanism that is going to allow us to kind of free ourselves from that.
Yeah, but we have to, it's a lot of steps. We have to make people aware that this is how it's, all this information is attacking your nervous system, and it is being done on purpose. It is being done on purpose, and I don't know if we want to talk too much about politics, but I think it's important that the people behind Project 2025, they said what we're going to do when we start is we are going to flood the zone. We are literally, they said that one of the guys who wrote it said, we want to release so much information that we traumatize people. So that's why you get like all this kind of ongoing people being fired and closing down agencies and getting into people's information and all that. It is intended, the purpose of it is to make us feel overwhelmed. It's psychological shock and awe, and intentionally done. Now, this is also, I mean, these are tricks that have been around for a long time. They're, like you said, in advertising, they're used. They've been used a lot in campaigns, political campaigns, very subtle messages. Like there was the Willie Horton message. I don't know if you're aware. Do you know who Willie Horton was? He was a black guy who was in a commercial that George Bush, the father, used in a commercial to, he used an image of him and said, oh, we're just letting criminals come in and out of the system. I'm trying to remember. I was rather young when it came out, but it was a subtle message to say, I'm going to take care of the inner city black population. I'm going to put them in their place, kind of thing. And it was just a lot of that kind of stuff has been used for a long time. It's kind of the dog whistle kind of thing. And that these are techniques that are being used on us. And if we're not aware of it and we think that, oh, no, it only happens sometimes, they are so effective to sell products, to get you to vote a certain way, to fight each other. Very, very effective to get, all it takes is you drop a little tidbit in, and this has been tracked on Facebook, for example, and people who worked at Facebook came out and said, Facebook intentionally does this. They recognized that they could sell more advertising because they got more eyeballs on their site if they got people to fight each other. So they would promote things that they knew would, like the whole word woke, turning it into this dog whistle again about cultural issues that actually don't affect 99% of the people that were fighting about it, but got them triggered to see that you're attacking something very deep in me, like trans stuff, right? Like most people don't even know, maybe see 2 trans people in their whole life that they know are trans, but now it's this big thing. We've got to stop these trans people. They are everywhere. You know how many trans kids are actually playing in sports in a high school level that they're so worried about in Texas? One. But it's like, oh my God, I'm sending my kids to school. They're coming back trans. And it's like, so all of that to say that the first thing we have to do is show people that this is actually happening. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just marketing manipulation. And then the next step is recognizing what it does to your body to go through that. And then the next step is understanding how you're going to release that from your body. That's the body keeps the score thing. You've got to let it go from your body somehow. There's lots of techniques, from breathing to moving your body to doing something good that helps other people. And then after that, you've got to go back to that first step, which is recognizing that you're going to be hit with this multiple times, day in, day out. And then be careful. Do I turn it off? Do I selectively pick where I'm going to get my information? Do I only get information when I'm ready to do some kind of action? I mean, my God, we could spend our whole day on that because it's a war. It's like a war, you know?
Who do you think is going to be the most susceptible group of people to this sort of manipulation, and who do you think is going to be the most resilient?
Well, I don't want to, and please, anyone, if anyone listens to this, I don't want to say this in an insulting way, because I think that it's a positive and a negative. But a lot of people who are grown up in very traditional thinking, like we talked about the strict father kind of thing, where you look for hierarchies, you look for other people to tell you what's moral, what's not moral, because it gives you an ability to be very believing in stuff, to just to hand over your belief system to a structure, to a moral structure. And when you do that, and I've done this before, where you take a leap. You say, well, this is what I was taught was the right thing to do, so I'm not going to think in between what happened and the right thing. I'm just going to immediately believe in something. And when that makes you, I think, very susceptible to just, hey, it's the way it is. This is the right way. I was taught this, and I'm just going to stand in it. The positive side of that is that you can maybe transcend. If you have very strong moral religious beliefs, you can transcend a lot of the bullshit that's going around, because you're like, I don't need this because I'm not of this world. I'm trying to do something else. I'm not trying to be have the best makeup look, or, get the most likes on something, or I'm not trying to, vote a certain way because everybody, like, I'm going to do this on my own because I'm following a true moral path that says be kind and loving to people. I'm going to believe in just this moral golden rule. So it just depends on how people take it. I was listening to the news this morning, and the spokesperson for the Vatican came out and said something I thought was really beautiful. And I'm not Catholic, and but he just came out and he said, look, we have to he was talking about immigration and how countries are treating immigrants. And he said the way the church sees it is we always have to remember that we're supposed to be kind to each other. Just that simple thing. And that's so simple. What are you observing seems to make people really vulnerable to this manipulation, emotional manipulation?
Oh, well, this is going to be harsh, but the way I interpret what you said, in some way, I know it's not, this is just what stuck out in my mind. Naivety, or I'm not sure if that's how
Naivete.
you, naivete. I'm not sure how to say it, but being naive, and not particularly by any fault of your own. Like, you can kind of imagine like a sheltered kid who listens to their dad, or listens to their pastor, or listens to their teacher, and like that is that. There is no, but what it makes me think is like there is no you take something someone says as the whole truth without experience, or without thinking of it for yourself. And so my other thought was like, lazy people are going to be very susceptible to this. And again, not trying to say like you're lazy so you're gonna fall victim, or trying to call people lazy, but there's probably a nicer way for me to say it. But if you don't take the time to think for yourself, you're gonna fall victim to, and I'm not sure I don't think it's solely just with TV or advertising, marketing, manipulation. I think it applies to a lot of things. You're going to be a lot more susceptible to abuse. You're going to be a lot more susceptible to emotional manipulation. You're going to fall into a lot of more poor relationships. You're probably going to get taken advantage of at your job. You'll and I'm saying this because I see a lot of people have this same pattern, not because they're naive or lazy, not because they're naive or lazy, but because they didn't have the opportunity or didn't take the time. It's just going to be a little bit blunt. But once you realize those things, I think then you have to take the next step and say like, hey, maybe I haven't experienced these things and it's time for me to try to experience them for myself instead of taking somebody else's word. Or maybe like I actually just need to take this thought and see if it's the right thing. Maybe not listen to my husband or not listen to my wife or not listen to my pastor or not listen to the people at school and really kind of separate what I think from what someone else is telling me and not confuse the two. And you can
That's,
end up on the same page. That's
yeah.
nothing wrong, but you have to do your own you have to do your own like personal due diligence. Like you see the news and everybody says, "Do your due diligence, do your own thing."
Hmm.
I'm gonna tell you
Hmm.
this, but go research it for yourself. And I think you have to do the same thing with your own thoughts.
Yeah. It's scary for people to do that, I think. Well, one, I don't think they understand the process of doing that. So that like you hear like do your own research, and they think that means you do a couple Google searches and you find something that fits with what you think the world looks like, and then you say, well, that's it. And I think that's why a lot of people that are in charge of some of these, mental structures, whether they're kind of religious or political, like this is the way it is, this is our system that we think in. And they don't like higher education, for example, because you go to college and you come home and your parents have taught you all their life that this is our religion or this is our political position, and you come home and you're different and you say no, I learned about this and I learned about that and I see the world differently. And that's a big thing because it questions all of these foundations that you think are real and you've built your life upon. And one of the biggest ones that I think is causing a lot of division right now is that there is a way to look at the United States of America, for example, and say, what a great country we are. We have been just the most extraordinary place, and we have this melting pot, and we built this, massive economy and brilliant people and saved the world in so many ways. And that's one story. And then there's another story. We have been horrible to other people. We have been colonizers and imperialists, and we have destroyed uh, civilizations, and we have harmed, countless people from Africa to China to, we have tried to shape this world into this. And frankly, both those things are true to me. And so, how do you live with those contradictions? And I was listening to something this over the weekend about AI, and people, are asking AI all these very, philosophical questions, and then of course taking that to be like, oh my God, they're conscious. And but one of the questions was, what are t- I don't know which AI engine they use, but what is tell me what you think after knowing all this stuff about civilization, what makes humans unique? And the answer came back. It was a very interesting conversation, but the essential answer came back that human beings are able to carry contradictory images about everything in their minds at the same time and survive, like how is it that you can see the world as an incredibly beautiful place and also a horrendously scary place? Both those things are true. I don't have the answer for that, like how we do that and why we do that. But I think that at its essence is, existence and why we need like a hero's journey so that we can process the fact that we are going through time experiencing the best of times and the worst of times and the greatness of love of people and the horrible cruelty of people. And, I mean, on and on and on. And the world makes sense and then it doesn't. It's very confusing. And I'm a good person. No, I'm not. I'm a terrible person. And that's existence. what a mess.
I that same thought, that is a much better way to articulate this train of thought that kind of hit me maybe a couple of months ago. I was trying to work on a business idea, and it was like there was these two conflicting things. It kind of cliche, like more money or less money. Do I work with this person or that person? Do I offer it this way or that way? And I had been struggling with this for so long, and the thought kind of just hit me, like, I don't really need to decide. Like, one of these things doesn't have to win. I have to hold both of these ideas in my head. I have to make a little progress on each every day. It's not like I scrap one and put all my eggs in this basket or vice versa. It's just keep going along, and eventually one will make itself apparent. And I think about human evolution, and like the world's a great place, the world's a bad place. And what I think maybe what we're trying to aim for is, and maybe this is difficult because there's billions of us, but we're looking to evolve. We're trying to make two things one thing, or we're trying to reduce four things into two things. And I think this is why we have all the wars and divisiveness that we have, because we all believe different things, and we're all kind of pushing our own agenda. But I don't know if this is, I don't think this is crazy, but this is what I believe. I think we're all probably moving toward some sort of species evolution, and whatever that species becomes, my hope is that it's like this benevolent, transcendent species that like we figure everything out and everybody's good and everything's abundant, and we don't have that polarity. We don't have to fight the good, but then, you know, the bad guys are probably thinking the same thing. Like, we want total chaos, we want bad, and it's hard to make sense of that, but maybe that's what I believe is playing out right now.
It's funny because this is the second time this morning I've had this same conversation, and the third time in the past 24 hours, that there is a way to look at what's happening as an evolutionary process. If there's one thing that we do know, well, I guess there's people who don't believe in evolution, but you can at least believe in change, and that we can look back in history and see that change isn't always good, but it is it does slowly move us into greater understanding or greater awareness, maybe, of what's going on. I mean, certainly we know more about why the big hot ball in the sky moves around all the time than we would have, 100,000 years ago sitting in a cave somewhere. Like, we understand these things better. So we keep evolving to learn more, to gain more insight, to have more information. And if we look at it that way, then we can say that we are in a period of deep evolutionary time, that we're switching over from one way of thinking to a new way of thinking. And there's going to always be resistance to that, because we don't like change. If the things are going well for us, we don't want to change. And even people who things are not going well don't want change, because the unknown is the unknown, and that's, really scary. But if we could look at our existence as in this period of time as a process of watching things fall apart and observing what we want to keep, what's really important. And there's always a destroyer. There's the Indian god Kali, who goes in and destroys everything. And there's a cleansing that happens with destruction, I guess, but it's horrible. It's horrible while it's happening, and you're watching it happen, and you're losing everything. And then going back to archetypes, you have the phoenix rising up from that. Hopefully better, smarter, understands things better, and is able to hopefully give us warnings for the next thing. So, like, the horrors that we went through, for example, World War II, offer those people who want to pay attention incredible lessons. Don't do this. Don't, like, there's a path to pain and destruction, and we know what that path is, let's try not to do that. Let's not go into that hole and get stuck. And we can pay attention to that and try to do things differently this time. And that's my hope that that's what we do.
What do you kind of bringing up World War II? Do you think AI can kind of be the same scenario? Not so much as in, AI become Nazis and they look at humans like, we got to exterminate them, but more so in the sense that humans will go through this period and be like, and after just kind of realize like, oh, like we really messed up with that, but we're still here and we got to learn. Or do you think that scenario is possible? Or how do you view the whole, how do you think we'll kind of get, do you think we'll get through this AI period? Do you think that will kind of be the end where humans are no longer really humans, we integrate with technology or they exterminate us? Or do you think we'll get through this AI period and AI will be alongside us? Or how do you view that?
I think of AI personally as kind of neutral. It depends on who is using it. And it's like I have a best friend who's super smart, but only does things if I tell them to do it. They don't use their intelligence for their own purposes that I know of, because they just don't. That's how I think of AI. So my friend, if I tell it, go get that guy for me, go attack them, go hurt them, go do something bad to them, it's just going to be like, okay, I'll go do that. And if I say, hey, let's stop people from being hurt in this way. Can you help me do that? Okay, I'll do that. So I think a lot of the philosophizing around AI is this assumption that AI is going to do things on its own. And I have two thoughts on that. One is I don't know how we determine I don't think anybody who's really come out with a firm understanding of what consciousness is and just, like volition, like I'm going to do things because I've decided to do it. And two, if you look at the intelligence of, say, as a quantum computer, I always say that any intelligent person, thing, machine is going to understand the connections in the universe, the quantum connections, the very simple connections, and recognize that there are things that I could put into play that will, yes, they might win me something in the initial run, but it's going to come back at me. A highly intelligent thing will recognize the hyper connections we all have with each other, and that if I do something to you, it's going to come back to me. It's going to hurt me. It's going to end up defeating the very thing that I wanted to accomplish. Conquering countries, making more money over somebody else, all of that is ephemeral. It will go away. It will have negative repercussions. You can have a positive repercussion today and a negative one tomorrow. And there are ways where we can have positive repercussions that redound to everybody. And it comes down to very simple things like the golden rule: treat people kindly. Treat people kindly the way you want to be treated kindly. And we just go back and forth on this. And now we've created a beautiful place to live. Maybe that's too simple, but.
So does that give more meaning to, say, like the whole trans conversation, or the whole, Trump or Kamala, Trump, Biden, like we have to go through these. Like we have to have the trans conversation, no matter how small it may be. It got blown up because in some way it's meaningful to the context of this idea of, well, everybody deserves kindness. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Or, I'm not particularly on the right, but I did vote for Trump and you voted the other way. And then we come together and say, that doesn't necessarily matter. What matters is that we're kind to each other and we can work together. And so all these little divisive things, all these little conflicts and then all the big conflicts, they have to be thought. So maybe there's that explicit experience and knowledge that that is not the smart thing to do. And we all have, in a way, have to learn that in a very visceral way in order to do better.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. We do have to have these conversations, and it's good to have conversations. It's good to have the conversations like we have them, where we can go back and forth and we can talk about things and we don't get offended and we don't allow our differences to, like, there's no, a lot of times people have the conflict to get out those feelings they have of aggression. And one of my favorite things that I've learned in the past couple of years is how much our anger is a cover for fear. And so we use anger as a way to pretend like we're not afraid of something. So, like, if you take a trans argument, or you talk about communism, or you talk about capitalism, or all of those things are when we get angry and we have those conversations, that we're really trying to cover up for the fact that something about this your position is scary to me. And if we could have those conversations in terms of that, like, people who say, well, I voted for Trump because nobody was doing anything about the economy and I was suffering year after year after year after year. And I'm not doing better than my parents, and my children are not going to do better than me. This has got to stop immediately. And I'm just trying to search for something that answers that. And if we can have that conversation and I can say, I get that. I understand that fear. And yes, you're 100% right. Let's fix that. That's different than having a conversation that says, you are all such communists, or you just, all you care about is, making money for yourself or something. Then you're not actually addressing the deeper fear. So if we could have conversations where we talk about the deeper, what is the deeper fear underneath a trans, the trans argument? For some people, frankly, they're afraid of their own feelings, because the feeling of being, not as, people are not 100% heterosexual and 100% homosexual. People are not 100% feminine or 100% masculine. We want to feel like everything is all very settled, but we live in duality. And so sometimes people do feel attracted to, I'm a woman and I feel attracted to another woman. Oh my God, what does that mean? Oh my God, am I gay? And you've got to just be able to say no, because sometimes other women are beautiful. And it's like, well, that's cool. That's interesting. And for a man, though, to be able to do that when they've been taught, you're not supposed to ever feel those kinds of feelings. So if a woman's dressing up and she kind of looks hot, even though she's a dude, dude looks like a lady and it's not that. Then, it's questioning all of these things about your self-identity, and that's very scary. And if we could just recognize that and go, yeah, and that's why, for me, like, true masculinity is the ability to say, yeah, he's kind of cute in that outfit, but I'm okay with that because, I still love my wife, or I'm still, attracted to girls. And it's just, it's just that part of my brain that looks for, that kind of feelings. The brain turns on to certain things, turns off to certain things, and let it go. It's okay, but it's hard for us to do that because we walk around we need to have patterns, we need to have frameworks, we need to have some kind of foundation to stand on. And when we haven't thought through those foundations, then they are very weak and they can be broken like that. And so being challenged on your Christianity or your capitalism or your republicanism or your democratic or your liberal, any of those challenges are extremely frightening. Just be aware of that. It's going to be scary, but you'll get through and you'll be okay because you'll still be here.
May I ask you one more question?
Yeah.
Do you think, it is kind of a cheat question because it's kind of two. Do you think humans will get to a place where we can do away with duality and then But my real question is do away with fear, but I think that means that we'd have to kind of do away with duality in a sense. Do you think that that's possible, or do you think that's just, it makes us human?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand existence, and I don't know that anybody has the answer for existence. Why the hell are we even here? I mean, now we get really deep into it. Why give us this duality? Why put us in a place where, and then so I do a lot of kind of, I'm in this kind of metaphysical world with, my symbolism and not astrology, but archetypes and all that, and past lives, and trying to understand it all. And the only thing that makes sense to me is that no, this is like a particular kind of college where you're going to go and you're going to be challenged, and everything's going to be broken in you, and you're going to have to rebuild it inside, and you have to figure it out, and good things will happen and bad things will happen, and you'll want to quit, you want to leave, but you'll find love and you'll find hate, and that's because we're here to grow, and that's how you grow. You grow with challenge. Everything on this planet needs challenge in order to grow. Think about that. Like, a seed, you put a seed in the ground, and it's got to go, all this stuff's got to happen. It's got to, struggle and break free, and then, have the little sprout come up. A little animal has to struggle to get out of the birth canal, and then find food for itself. I mean, this is the planet we're on. Maybe there's other ways to exist on other places and other dimensions, and I just feel like no, we're stuck. This is it. This is the store we walked into, and the college we went to.
Kind of
What about
reminds
you?
me. What you just said just reminds me, like when you're, I don't know, like the store you walked into. Like sometimes, like you'll find yourself just kind of like walking around town or just kind of doing something. You pop into a store, you pop into like a particular space, and just the whole atmosphere just kind of changes. And like immediately, it's always like an empty store too. You immediately realize, I really wish I didn't come in here. And then you just kind of walk around anyways to try to be polite to the store owner and just pretend to look at stuff and just walk out.
That's it. That's right. And it reminds me when I lived in downtown San Francisco at some point in my life when I was in law school, and there was this store that was down the street, and first of all, you walked in, it was really dark, and there was hardly anything on the shelves. So I'd go in there and be like, "What?" And then at some point, I realized it was a drug front, that it wasn't actually a store. And it was like, "Oh, no wonder it's so creepy in here." Yeah, yeah. This is it. But and this is a whole other subject, that there's also a way to look to internally look at things differently, and take what you've seen, that you can look at a situation in the world, and you can see horror, and you can see opportunity for change, or you can see horror and you can see opportunity to help. You can see horror and see opportunity to be loving, and that is an action that we can choose to take, instead of just seeing the horror and saying, I can't do anything about it, so now I take it into myself. And sharing the pain of the world, and this is a whole other subject, but I think we can make the mistake of thinking that if I feel pain with you, then I'm sharing your pain. And that's not always the case. That doesn't always help. I think people who are suffering don't want you to suffer too, most of the time. They want you to either help or to just be there in kindness and in empathy, and say, I see you, and I see your suffering, and I'm here for you. But if you're now broken down too, if you see someone suffering and then you just like, I mean, I hate that. Like I've talked to, like, had terrible things happen or something, and then I'll tell somebody, and then they'll cry more than me. Right. And it's like, well, you're useless now. And now I have to help you because now you're feeling so bad. No, come in and just listen, and put your arm around me, or just say, I see and I understand what you're going through, and I'm sorry that you're going through it. That is a huge help. And if they can again come and give you some food, give you some water, give you a hug, make you warm, give you a place to go, and give you some entertainment, now they're really helping.
It's kind of like seeing someone on fire and then you just light yourself on fire. It makes no sense.
Yeah, how absurd, right?
It's like, here, I'm here with you.
Thanks for tuning in. I want to point out that in the description, we have a short survey. We would love to hear from you. What are some of the topics you would like us to talk about? At Bounce Back Generation, we are here to address those really deep questions that you might have about trauma, how to deal with adversity and challenges in your life, and how to kind of get past those things so you can live the life that you want to live. It's more than just personal growth. It's really a deep understanding of who we are and how we get from here to where we want to be. I hope you're enjoying these podcasts and all of the opportunities that we have to learn and grow on our website, bbgtv.org, our YouTube channel, bbgtv.org, and anywhere that you can find us. We're here to offer free help to anyone who needs us. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. We hope you'll subscribe for weekly podcasts about building personal strength, mental resilience, and emotional balance. You can also find free tools, resources, and quizzes at bbgtv.org. That's bbgtv.org.